I just want zero conflict. A previous leader said this to me. And sitting across from that conference room table in my office, I really had to work at controlling my face, which is often louder than my voice, because even as the eternal optimist who flirted with toxic positivity, I knew that zero conflict wasn't a realistic option. So, this is what we're digging into today, the truth that great workplaces need conflict. So, welcome to the Joyosity Podcast. We base our work here on three bedrock beliefs that true leadership requires more than just surface level strategies. It really requires a profound commitment to everything that makes us human. We use genuine curiosity. That way, we can create positive culture with all the complex people that we work with, because those are the only people that we've got. And that joy is the heartbeat of a healthy leader and a healthy organization. And so every week on Joyosity, we bring you dynamic conversations with experts and leaders. And more than just a couple tips to help you lead well, we are building a movement with you. So tell me hi if you are here live in the comments, because we also want to hear your hard-won wisdom, your real life experiences, while we share those to you along with leading research. So I'm Jen Whitmer, keynote speaker and a leadership consultant and all around joy bringer, that I am here to host you today. And together we're going to move from ideas to action and really embrace the challenges that come with leading in this dynamic, imperfect world. So be ready for the I can use this right now tool, or the kind of gasp and gut punch deep insight that will transform you as a person and your life as a leader. So grab those multiple beverages. Tell me what you've got today. Get your speaker, your headphones connected, maybe even gather some Post-its so you can capture that quote you want. So if you're ready, let's go, because great workplaces need conflict. Yep, I said it. Hello to those of you who are here. And Amy, Tyler, let me know, what does it feel like when I say that great workplaces need conflict? So let's go back to that meeting. Zero conflict. I mean, I would love that, but I knew that wasn't a realistic option. In that moment, what I didn't know was his aversion to conflict would send our culture into a flat spin like Maverick and Goose. And it resulted in so many casualties. And I know it sounds absurd, but here's what I know now. And that in order to have joy at work, you've got to have conflict. It is an inconvenient truth and a paradox of life that I really, really don't like, but have learned to embrace. So that flat spin in our culture looked like this: walking on eggshells. Is this okay to say? Can I be honest about this problem? And I'm curious for you, have you experienced that, where that level of insecurity is just maddening? On the outside, everything's okay. But really, it was just lipstick on a pig, because inside I was rehashing and rehearsing conversations at 1 a.m., staring at the ceiling. Or I was typing 5 words, deleting them, typing 6 words, deleting those. All of those back and forth things, because we couldn't be honest about anything, because zero conflict was the goal. And so, because zero conflict was the goal, we created 1,000 more problems. Because if you avoid conflict, you manufacture fake peace. Now, I've been talking and researching around this idea for several years. And in my upcoming book, I've really looked at the updated research around this, because we are in a new environment than when I started. So hybrid remote work environments are more the norm, when they were unusual when I started this work. And those type of environments, while fantastic, I love that I sit here and can do my work and sometimes work with clients in this way all the time. But hybrid and remote work environments make that type of fake peace even easier to fall into. And what the research is showing is it's because we're not in the room together, we don't physically feel it as much. but we still feel it. We don't necessarily know that it's not okay anymore. We don't have that level of discomfort because we're not in the room. So, is it really a problem? Am I really interpreting this? And it's much easier to just pretend because you can turn off the Zoom screen. You can say, "Oh, that's not really a big deal," right? Yeah, it's common. I see your comments about this. It's such a problem because it's just like, well, I can just make a side comment text to my friend, and see what they say on the Zoom screen and not really engage. And so that fake piece is becoming more and more a problem. And because we don't have those same connections, we're also more lonely in the fake piece. So, real peace and real connection, even in our hybrid and remote environments, require engaging in the conflict. So, let's define what I'm talking about when I mean conflict. So, here's my definition of conflict. Conflict is the struggle or the opportunity for struggle of limited resources and differing goals. Conflict is a struggle of limited resources and differing goals. And when you say it like that, you realize there is no way to avoid that struggle. We all have limited resources. And it's obvious that sometimes people have differing goals. And so when we layer the complexity of people onto that, who might have individual complexity within themselves and their own differing goals. I know that I am like, I want two things right now. What is my actual goal? Because I have a limited resource. And then you add that to a group trying to get to a goal. You have a meeting that's happening. Y- all of that makes conflict really easy. And of course, inevitable. So I really want you to know that the presence of conflict doesn't mean you're a bad leader. It doesn't mean you are a bad person. It doesn't mean the other people on your team are bad. It means that you have a resource and goal struggle and you have to problem solve for that. So, when you are in that type of situation, I'm curious how you feel about it. I know for me, when I think about conflict, I'm kind of like, don't be like, I'm just like, let me see what I can make happen over here. So it doesn't really feel that way. Other people are like, let's go. Other people feel like this, that their head is down. Their shoulders are slumped, all of that. And they're retracting into themselves. Those postures aren't great for problem solving. It doesn't work very well. So, what I want you to imagine when you are facing conflict, that you have this posture. So, we're going to pretend my cup. If you're watching, this is a cup. If you're listening, I just want you to pretend you're standing next to somebody. So, rather than this is me against the problem, like you're the problem, you want to link arms like you're playing Red Rover and you're on the same team. And the problem is out there. It's the two of us together against the problem out there because it's a limited resources and differing goal problem. That's what we're trying to get to. So when we're problem solving from a posture of we're on the same team, like Red Rover, here we are, we're together, linked arms, nobody's going to get through us, we're together. It's an incredibly different experience. You literally see things differently. So when you are approaching a limited resource, differing goal conflict, because that's what conflicts are, I want you to think of the posture as it's the two of us together against the problem out there. So now, whenever we face these types of problems, it can feel like we had one conversation, it's over, done. But that's not actually how it works. Even when you're in that posture, there's still a framework to walk through. So there are 4 stages really of solving an interpersonal conflict. And we don't really talk about these 4 stages a lot. So I want you to imagine in your mind a lock and dam system. So a lock and dam system, if you don't remember from like 7th grade geography, is like a pool that fills with water and it raises the level of the boat to the next lock. And then they open the lock and they go through, and then that one closes, and then they fill this one with water and they go through. So it's a process. It is not an instant moment in time. So the first step in the lock and dam system of conflict is actually forgiveness. We don't like to talk about forgiveness a lot, but it's an incredibly important part of this, where somebody might have made a mistake or hurt your feelings. And sometimes you don't have to say it out loud. Sometimes you just need to let it go and forgive them. Not every problem requires forgiveness, but a lot of interpersonal conflict does, even if it's a tiny thing. So, forgiveness doesn't require an apology, which is really confusing because forgiveness only requires you. You're releasing somebody from the the work that they did that caused a problem. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have consequences. It means you're emotionally releasing it from yourself. You have to process through it. I've talked a lot about that with my clients of how do you overcome and overlook. But forgiveness is it's really for you. Because if you don't forgive somebody else, you don't release the emotions from you. It's like I can't I think it's Aristotle. Somebody look this up for me. Who said it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Super unhelpful. So forgiveness is for you. That's really the first step. It doesn't actually require the other person. But then when you get into it and you're like, okay, it's the two of us. How do we reconcile? How do we solve this differing goals and limited resource problem? That is reconciliation. And that's a conversation between two or more people. And in this conversation, you are talking through how do we solve this problem? Here's what I know that happened, or here's what I remember happening. Here's how I found that a problem. What about you? I'm going to give you a way through that in a moment. But I just want you to think about that as a conversation. Reconciliation is a conversation. And afterwards, it just still feels a little bit awkward. Like sometimes you're like, okay, now what? And it's kind of like, okay, it's just awkward for a little bit. And the reason it's awkward is because you haven't moved to the next step yet. And that's restoration. Restoration is the longest step in conflict resolution. And it's the part that we often skip. So, what happens many times I have found is like, oh, we had the conversation, so everything's fine now. Well, our emotions don't work that fast. And because whenever there's been some type of conflict, usually there has been some hurt feelings, even if it was a limited resource and differing goal problem. There's probably been a little bit of broken trust. There's always been some type of miscommunication or different ways of seeing things. So the restoration process is actually about rebuilding trust. Okay, so next time when this happens, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And so when it happens again, you actually do X, Y, and Z. So on my team, we have been redoing a lot of back end resources or back end workflows, and we've run into the new problems. And so we're making these kind of decisions where it's like, okay, the next time this happens, let's make sure we put that in Notion. So we do this next. So that's our step. So when it happens again, we go to Notion and we do that. And that builds trust. Like we've created a solution. Now we have to follow out the solution. That's restoration. That's a part of conflict resolution. So you release and then you have reconciliation, which is a conversation, and then you do trust building. That part of restoration can be really quick. The bigger the issue, the longer restoration takes. And sometimes it ends there. And especially in some environments where there has been real harm done, you might never get to the next step, which is reinstatement. Reinstatement always requires somebody else because it means somebody's been removed from a relationship, they've been removed from a position, something's been removed. And so more people have to be involved to decide, are we ready to reinstate? And without getting into all of the different possibilities that could create, sometimes reinstatement isn't a good idea. Sometimes shifting somebody to a new place, a new position, not because you're just avoiding the conflict, but because actually there are too many differing goals here. We need to put you in a place where it's better. And that is kind and good leadership for everyone. So reinstatement doesn't necessarily mean everything is hunky dory and you're putting somebody back. Sometimes it means you've changed. You've built that trust again and realized that actually we need to do this differently with a new position in a new place. So the final stage of reinstatement sometimes looks a little bit different. Sometimes it does look like actually we are better for this and we're together in it again. So there's lots of variations in this lock and dam system because that's what water does. So you move from that release to reconciliation, restoration, and then you move into reinstatement. So the way you get there in like that phase is, okay, Jen, I don't have a lock and dam system. I'm having conversations. What does that look like? That's what we're doing next. So curiosity is the way through conflict to joy. The only way out is through. You can't go around it. It's like the bear song, going on a bear hunt. Can't go over it, can't go under it, gotta go through it. You have to go through the conflict. And so I have a simple set of 3 questions that will help you in those types of conversations to really lean into that curiosity. And I want you to think of these questions as categories. You can ask these questions directly and they're helpful, but sometimes you have to say them differently to get to real shared meaning and understanding from that curious posture. So it's the two of us together. We're curious about how we're going to do this and solve this problem out there. So the 3 types of questions I want you to ask are: how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? And what do you want to do about this? Feel, think, do. So when you ask the question, how do you feel about this? You need to ask that of yourself. Sometimes when you ask that question, people tell you what they think, and you might need to ask it again. So, how do you feel about this? What are your emotions around this? What's the vibe around this? You might hear younger kids say it that way, but we're asking for an emotion. That's the feeling that you're trying to get to, an emotion, because emotions are part of every conflict. And if you ignore them, you haven't actually gotten through resolution. So then you want to ask, what do you think about this? And there are lots of ways to ask, what do you think about this? How did you get this information? Who told you that? Where did you find that? What are some of your reasons for your conclusion? How are you thinking about this? What's your thought process? All of those are different ways to ask the what do you think about this question. And so in thinking, you're looking for sequence of logic, you're looking for facts, you're looking for data, policies, you're looking for emails, you're looking for the context that you can put in kind of fact form, and then also the process someone is giving the context. And so you can even ask, what context are you thinking about this in? Because sometimes people are coming at it as a supervisor, and really you're coming at it as the subject matter expert. And those are 2 different postures. And so you want to find the context there. So that's what the thinking question is about. And then the third question is, what do you want to do? These are solutions. Try to come up with a couple, because sometimes people jump to the nuclear solution, and really you didn't have to go that far. You could really have solved it a little bit simpler. And so what do you want to do? Dream a little bit, come up with some creative solutions. Don't knock solutions out before you've tested them or thought about them a little bit more with somebody else. But finding out what somebody wants to do helps you create better solutions together. Again, it's a problem solving, limited resources, differing goals. How do we do this together? So what are some things you want to do? And what are some things I want to do? Could we, oh, actually, we have the same solution. That sounds great. Oh, we don't have it there yet. So kind of going back through, here are some ideas. And then you're negotiating through that. That is one of the things when we talk about culture, the way things are done. So when you approach conflict with curiosity and questions in these 3 categories, how do we feel about this? What do we think about this? What do we want to do? Those types of questions bring a culture of curiosity that leads you through conflict in healthy ways, where people feel heard. Even if their solution isn't chosen, they will feel heard because you listened to them. You were curious about what they wanted to do. That type of culture brings joy and belonging into the situation, and you'll have better solutions, you'll have better results in the end. So sometimes when you're thinking through these types of things, you're like, oh, I wouldn't say it like that. So I have a free resource, and this is for everybody. Everybody needs this. It's called 20 Helpful Phrases in Difficult Conversations. And you can get that at jenwhitmer.com/20, the number phrases. And it will send you this sheet, and you'll have these 20 questions. Make them your own, practice them. Whenever you are in the middle of a difficult conversation, you can get easily tongue-tied. So my suggestion is actually to practice a little bit. Practice those words, say them out loud because there's a physical component to it. I'm touching my face because your mouth literally has two move muscles. And so when you say those words out loud, you get better at them. You won't feel quite as nervous in the middle of that conversation when you're asking, how do you feel? What do you think? What do you want to do? So that's for everybody. If you are ready to go deeper, because your personality has a huge role that we didn't even talk about in the framework and the questions, and your Enneagram type, your Enneagram personality has a conflict style that has a huge role in the way you approach these types of conversations and whether or not you even want to engage in conflict. And at the Joyosity Leadership Retreat, we're spending time on your personality and really how does this show up in your leadership? And if you are ready to really dig into that, the leadership retreat, the Joyosity Leadership Retreat is something I want you to consider. So I want to invite you to that. If you are a woman and you are leading in some capacity, the Joyosity Retreat is a great place for you to reimagine how you want to do work, take some time away and have some fun with other leaders, but also dig into these real topics. And so you can get that at the QR code, or you can go to jenwhitmer.com/joyosity retreat and find all the information there. And if you've got questions, you can always shoot me an email. So that is, like I said, 20 questions. It's for everybody. The Joyosity Retreat might not be for you, but it's happening in November in St. Louis. So go check that out at jenwhitmer.com/joyosity retreat. So back to that idea of our culture in a flat spin. So that's from the movie Maverick, not from the movie Maverick, it's the movie Top Gun, from the 80s. And they go into a flat spin and tragically Goose dies and Maverick survives. So a couple years ago, the movie Maverick, the sequel to this 20 years later, Tom Cruise's character is still living in fake peace. He has not recovered from that flat spin that killed his partner and best friend. And because of that, he admits to several bad decisions he's made over the 20 plus years in Goose's death. And in the movie, Iceman, who is now an admiral and friends with Maverick, summons Maverick to his house. And he's unable to use his voice because of cancer. And so he types his side of the conversation with Maverick. So Tom Cruise's character confesses his feelings of loss and poor decisions. And Iceman is typing back and forth. And when he gets to this point, Iceman leans over the computer and he types these 5 words. It's time to let go. If you've lived through fake peace, you've lived through a toxic situation. It's a denying of reality. If things are fake, you can't live in real reality, and that is toxic to you. And you have to heal from the fake peace, or you will continue to recreate fake peace. Maverick's chasing it for 20 years against himself, and you will never find joy. You may never get the apology you want from that situation, and you likely deserve. You may never get to give the apology that you want to offer. And if that's you, it's time to let go. You can only lead as far as you've healed. So moving forward, what could that create for you to release that? If you want to lead to joyosity and more joy at work, I want you to get curious and practice moving through conflict. Don't fall into fake peace, even in your remote workspace, even when it feels like it's easier. It's only going to create more problems. I want you to remember that posture of it's the 2 of us, the 5 of us, however many, against the problem out there of limited resources and differing goals. You move through releasing, reconciliation, restoration, and reinstatement, and asking the questions of how do you feel, what do you think, and what you want to do. Go grab those 20 phrases at jenwhitmer.com/20 phrases to help you through it. If you are interested in the retreat to dig deeper, absolutely. But I want everyone listening, everybody in this Joyosity community, I want you to be brave enough to see conflict as an opportunity for joy. It's an opportunity for joy. So let's go take it. All right? Okay, everybody. I hope you have a great week and we will see you next time. So let me put my coach hat on for just a moment. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them what you're going to do. Check the show notes for all the links and connect with us on LinkedIn and all the other socials, or just, drop me an email at Jen with 2 N's at jenwhitmer.com. We want to keep this conversation going with you. I know your earballs have a lot coming at them, so thank you for listening to the Joyosity podcast and being a part of our community. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people join us in the movement to create positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us next week.